Hello, everyone. You are watching Current, powered by NBCN. I'm Natalie Lizarraga. Thanks so much for joining us here today. We have Melody Mendez, Sue O'Connell, and Colton Bradford here to help me tell these stories today. Colton, starting with you, you're following a developing story overseas right now.
Yeah, in Greece, actually. A passenger train there and a freight train collided. Dozens of people were killed. We'll have more in just a minute.
Sue, we're getting some insight now into Rupert Murdoch's testimony, this in a lawsuit against Fox News.
Yeah, that lawsuit was filed by Dominion Voting Systems. You might remember them. In his testimony, Murdoch admitted he did not try to stop Fox News hosts from pushing the false claim that the 2020 election was stolen. I'm going to have that story, plus some more of your political headlines.
And Melody, maybe my favorite story of the entire day. A college athlete may have Oreos to thank for a very impressive performance.
Oreos, not the regular Oreos either, Natalie. This is a very controversial flavor. Lemon, because who wants lemon to ruin their Oreo cookies? Well, apparently this guy did, and now he's hoping his coach is buying in on the hype. I'll explain it all.
Hey, a superstition that they're going to keep up for sure. Okay,
yes.
We'll get to that a little later. We'll jump right to your top story today. The Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works wants to speak with the CEO of the train company behind that disastrous derailment in Ohio. Lawmakers made the request on Tuesday, and Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw has agreed to testify on March 9th. It's been nearly a month since the train carried hazardous chemicals that went off the tracks. Happening overseas, rescue workers in Greece are desperately searching for a head-on collision between two trains and looking for survivors still. Let's bring in Colton back with these kind of gruesome details here.
Yeah, Nat, so that passenger train coming from Athens and an oncoming freight train collided in the central part of the country there, and we know at least 36 people are dead and 85 are injured. So this is actually video from that wreckage in Tempe, which is about 250 miles from Athens. Around 350 passengers were on board the train at the time. Many of them, by the way, were college students traveling back from a festival. Now, fire officials say multiple cars were thrown from the tracks there, and at least 3 burst into flames. The Associated Press, citing a police report, claims a man responsible for overseeing signaling has been arrested in connection with that crash. Now, in a statement, the train company expressed, quote, deep sorrow over the crash and said it was cooperating with the authorities there, as well as providing support to the families of those killed and other passengers affected. Of course, the cause of the crash isn't known yet, but we'll keep you posted. Nat?
Thank you, Colton. Let's go back here in the U.S., where several cars of a train also fell off the tracks. This was near the Sarasota-Manatee County line in Florida. No injuries were reported. Officials say that 5 of the 6 cars were carrying sheetrock, but one of them was filled with propane. So it wasn't leaking, and it has been deemed safe. But in order to clear the tracks, authorities said they must first siphon about 30,000 gallons of propane out of that tanker car. Some 30 million Americans bracing as expanded SNAP benefits or food stamps come to an end. Benefits have been expanded during the pandemic. Now, 18 states have already ended the boosted benefits. The remaining 32 states plus other jurisdictions, including D.C., will follow suit this week. Some states are working on fixes at a local level. According to the study from the Center of Budget Policy's Priorities, the average household will lose about $95 a month for groceries, although that number is dependent on a range of factors. The pandemic may be playing a smaller role, of course, in our daily lives now, but prices are still a lot higher. Grocery prices up 10% in the last year. The latest data shows more than 42 million people are enrolled in SNAP benefits. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments on Tuesday challenging President Biden's authority to forgive student loan debt without congressional approval. Susan Hogan spoke with people demonstrating outside of the Supreme Court who say that this ruling could have a lifelong impact.
Y'all need to cancel it, and cancel it for all. Nearly 100 student borrowers and parents outside the Supreme Court chanting, "Cancel student debt," including this freshman student at Morgan State who already faces thousands of dollars in debt.
And I can only imagine how much more debt I'm going to accumulate by the time I end medical school.
The Supreme Court is hearing back-to-back oral arguments regarding the Biden administration's student loan forgiveness program. Launched in October, it would forgive up to $20,000 per borrower, impacting 43 million students with a price tag of $400 billion. This mother and son from Oregon came to D.C. to be part of history and to voice their concern over the high cost of education.
It's gotten so much more expensive lately that it's hard for a lot of people to pay it nowadays.
The administration says more than 40 million Americans are eligible for relief. 26 million already applied. But 6 Republican-led states filed suit to block the program, arguing concerns over how the costs might impact federal government operations. Justices in the court's majority focusing in on that point.
We take very seriously the idea of separation of powers.
The other case was brought by 2 borrowers who live in different states who allege they were improperly denied the opportunity to comment on the plan. The justices also questioning whether the policy is fair to other Americans.
For example, people who've paid their loans.
The Biden administration says debt relief is permitted under the 2003 law that grants the executive branch the power to provide relief to student loan borrowers when there is a national emergency, COVID being that emergency. This student borrower from the Bronx and attending Morgan State as a psychology major is one of million Americans just waiting for answers that could reshape her future.
And I want to be a really good psychologist. I want the good education, but it's like it comes with a very deep cost that I will be repaying for the rest of my life.
Now, of course, a decision could take several weeks, but experts have said that they do expect the High Court to actually overturn the plan. If it finds there is standing, that's because there are 6 conservatives sitting on the bench. Reporting outside of Supreme Court, Susan Hogan, News 4.
All right, time to talk politics. One of the country's biggest cities will soon have a new mayor. So we are talking about Chicago. Lori Lightfoot losing the re-election bid.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It's the first time in 40 years a Chicago mayor has lost re-election. Ending her historic run as the city's first black woman and first openly gay person to serve in the position, Lightfoot, a Democrat, failed to get enough votes in the 9-person race to move on to an April 4th runoff election. Lightfoot's unfavorable ratings have soared, with Chicagoans fed up with gun violence, as well as carjackings and robberies. And despite being the sitting mayor, she routinely failed to lead in recent polling, and she conceded the race Tuesday night.
4 years ago, I looked into the camera and spoke directly to young people of color who look like me, and to every kid who felt like I did when I grew up. And I'm going to do that again tonight. I told you back then that anything is possible with hard work. And I want you to know that no matter what happens along the way, you should always believe that, because it's true.
Paul Vallis, who's a former CEO of Chicago Schools, in April will face Brandon Johnson, a Cook County commissioner endorsed by the Chicago Teachers Union.
Now let's talk about those documents that you teased at the top of the show here. Court documents coming out on a lawsuit against Fox News. They were filed by the voting machine maker Dominion Voting Systems. News Corp executive chairman Rupert Murdoch, you might know the name, testified about what he did or maybe didn't know about the allegations of voter fraud by Trump supporters. What are we learning? I know it's salacious.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, actually. News Corp owns Fox News, and according to these court documents, Murdoch chose to do nothing when his Fox News host spread false claims of widespread voter fraud right after the 2020 election, even though he expressed privately that he had seen little evidence for those fraud claims. And in fact, Murdoch said that he found half of them bull and damaging. That's a quote. His testimony continued, saying that Fox News was, quote, trying to straddle the line between spewing conspiracy theories on one hand, yet calling out the fact that they are actually false on the other. All right, so Murdoch also acknowledged in his testimony that some of his Fox News hosts, including Sean Hannity, Lou Dobbs, and Maria Bartiromo, had endorsed the claims, not just reported on them. Now, Dominion sued Fox News in March 2021. They're seeking $1.6 billion in damages for what it alleges were lies that deeply damaged Dominion's once thriving business. Fox News has defended its coverage and has called the lawsuit baseless. Now, Natalie, as you know, these sort of claims against media companies rarely move forward, and usually they settle. So This will be an interesting court case to watch.
Okay, now we'll shift back to the election season here. Another open Senate seat. This time it's in Michigan, Sue. I imagine the race is on, as they say.
It is indeed. Representative Elisa Slotkin, she's a Democrat. She announced on Monday that she will run for the Senate seat being left by Debbie Stabenow, who's a Democrat. She announced she's not seeking re-election in 2024. In her campaign announcement, Slotkin, she highlighted her service in the CIA, where she served multiple tours in Iraq, her national security service under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. And there's no news from the Republican side of the aisle there about who might enter the race. But as usual, I'll keep you posted.
You certainly will. Thank you, Sue. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman will be away from the Senate for several more weeks. Democrat checked himself in for clinical depression. This was in mid-February. He's been treated at Walter Reed. The office says he was struggling with the after effects of dealing with a stroke, adding Fetterman had experienced depression on and off throughout his life, but he said he became more severe in these recent weeks. The 53-year-old suffered a stroke last May as he was campaigning. The Biden administration cracking down on child labor. There's new measures that were announced in the wake of media reports, including by NBC News, on children working grueling jobs here in the U.S. Monica is here with those new numbers.
So the Labor Department Monday provided new numbers on illegal child labor happening in the U.S. More than 3,800 children were found to be working at companies last year. That's violation of federal law. Since 2018, there's been a 69% increase in the number of children employed in violation of labor laws. Hundreds of investigations remain ongoing, and the problem has grown worse as increasing numbers of children fleeing violence and poverty in Latin America. Now, NBC News previously reported more than 100 children, some as young as 13, were found to be working hazardous overnight jobs like cleaning slaughterhouses. The Labor Department called it a corporate-wide failure by Packer Sanitation Services, one of the largest food sanitation companies in the country. Lawyers say some of the children employed by the company were unaccompanied minors from Guatemala who came across the southern border. Homeland Security investigators now looking into whether the children were part of a human trafficking scheme. That sanitation company, however, not the target of the investigation. A spokesperson for them said a strong corporate commitment to our zero tolerance policy against employing anyone under the age of 18. Another company, Hearthside Food Solutions, was featured in a New York Times article from over the weekend with similar accusations. Federal officials confirmed Monday the company was under investigation for possible child labor violations. Going forward, the Labor Department will use new strategies to launch investigations where child labor violations are most likely to occur. They'll also enhance tracking of minors who enter the country alone. The agency also called on Congress to increase the maximum penalty for child labor violations, which is currently $15,000. In the studio, I'm Monica Medea. Back to you.
19-year-old who fatally shot 3 people in Pine Hills, Florida last week, including a TV journalist, has been hit with some additional charges. Keith Melvin Moses, who was taken into custody a week ago, had already been charged with a single count of first-degree murder in the death of his first victim, Nathasha Augustin. Moses allegedly shot Augustin, then returned to that scene hours later. He allegedly shot and killed TV journalist Dylan Lyons and a 9-year-old girl, Tiana Major, when he returned. He's now charged in their deaths as well. Authorities describe Moses as a known gang member with a lengthy rap sheet. The widow of late basketball star Kobe Bryant has accepted a settlement in the case over those crash photos. Vanessa Bryant agreed to nearly $29 million to settle her lawsuit against Los Angeles County. She accused law enforcement of inappropriately taking and sharing photos at that helicopter crash site where her husband and her daughter, Gianna, died in 2020. The FDA advisors are recommending the agency approve the nation's first RSV vaccine. That shot is from Pfizer. It would only be for people 60 and older. Pfizer says a single-dose shot can reduce the risk of illness by up to 86%. RSV kills about 10,000 people 65 and older every single year. If approved by the FDA, it would still need CDC approval before it can become available. 3 years into the pandemic, and Hong Kong has lifted their mask mandate. This mask policy is one of the last such policies remaining in the world. Starting today, people there will no longer have to wear masks indoors, outdoors, and public transportation. Places like hospitals and restaurants, though, still can require them. Hong Kong has had some of the most strict policies that we've seen during this pandemic that help the region largely avoid mass outbreaks. Okay, social time.
Yes.
Melody's in the building. This is something you don't see every day. Prince William and Princess Kate showing their competitive sides to people.
We've seen it before. This was a really fun moment, though, between the two, and it was refreshing to see the royal couple. So they were in Wales on Tuesday. They stopped by this fitness center where they competed in spin bikes, on spin bikes, you know, like a spinning class, right? These are some still shots of them. Look, mid-ride. I love that they're both smiling, although he looks like he's in severe pain, just trying to keep up with her. Clearly having a good time. They faced off while making, they faced off before, I should say, while making drinks, sailing, playing ping pong. They go at it, and she always wins. And in the end, guess what? She won again. Kate, victorious here. She got this teeny tiny little trophy. She later said she thinks they just felt bad for her because she was in heels.
Yeah, that's not how you ride a bike. I did not expect to see pictures of them in their like daytime, fully not workout clothes.
And I love that she was wearing like a $40 outfit, by the way, which is
really?
like, it's nice to see. Yeah, I know we always talk about what she's wearing, but it's nice to see that she actually shops where shop, maybe sometimes. I don't know.
So as we know, this guy, Tom Brady,
won't get out of our lives.
Yeah, he's got a lot of time on his hands now that he's retired.
Apparently so much time that he's going to take up stand-up comedy. Or maybe not. Everyone wondering what he's going to do next.
Oh,
or if
no.
you're like me, not wondering at all what he's going to do next because you don't really care. But here's the thing. TMZ was reporting that rumors of Brady going into stand-up comedy that were rampant all over the internet yesterday, they're just not true, they say. However, he's reportedly in talks with Netflix on a roast special.
Oh, maybe that's where this all started.
There you go. Working title, The Greatest Roast of All Time. Next year, Brady will start his job giving analysis with Fox Sports. This guy just cannot stay away from the limelight.
Oh, we're going to see a lot of Tom Brady.
Be in the spotlight. He needs eyes on him.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Before we get to this last story, I do want to ask you, because we kind of teased it at the top of the show. I was unaware, and I don't know if you were, that lemon Oreos actually existed, and just why.
I'm gladly unaware. Happily unaware, Natalie.
Some things don't need a remix.
No. I mean, well, it needed the double stuff.
Yeah, I was just about to say that too. The double stuff is fine.
But no, nobody wanted lemon with their Oreo, except one guy, apparently. Remember Popeye, the sailor guy with the spinach can? Yeah. Not sure what it has to do with this, but
it made him stronger.
Oh, all right, sure, there's that. Pete Nance plays for the UNC Tar Heels, fighting to make it into March Madness. So here's the deal. They beat number 6 ranked Virginia in a must-win game this weekend. Nance had a huge game, 22 points, 4 blocks, and an entire package of lemon Oreos. Yes.
Ew, they come in sleeves, sir.
Yes.
You're eating the whole box?
The whole box.
No.
The head coach reportedly found out this week that Nance loves lemon Oreos, so he gave him a whole package before the game, not the sleeve, Nat. That box. 3, at least 4 rows.
Yeah.
He ate the whole thing. Didn't stop there. Team got back to their hotel room, reportedly to find some 24 packages of lemon Oreos. And he has to be the only person on earth who thinks these are delicious.
I'm sorry, is this man eating the party size? This is insane.
I don't know, but lemon Oreo. I'm all for the white Oreos. I love them. I'm all for the double stuffed Oreos. I love it. But I feel like I'm being judgy because I haven't tried the lemon. So
maybe 1 or 2, but a whole box is a lot. Do you have any sports superstitions that you believe in?
No, I haven't played sports since high school. So no.
This might actually work. Well, March Madness will be able to tell if UNC
lemon Oreos
makes it very far because of those lemon Oreos.
I'm putting them in the end of my bracket with a giant lemon Oreo squished right next to it.
We'll see. Thanks, Melody.
I'll be back.
We have your entertainment headlines coming up. Don't go anywhere. That was entertaining, though.
You're not done with me yet. Giant.
There's a lot going on in the world, but LX News has got you covered, digging deeper and providing context to social justice, women's rights, climate change, and more.
You ask why, and we got the answer.
Watch LX News on TV, cable, or on your favorite streaming platform.
As promised, we're going to drop some entertainment headlines for you today. I want you guys to get ready to go back to Neverland. The first trailer's out for the live-action Disney Plus film, Peter Pan and Wendy.
What is it that you're afraid of, my love? Perhaps I don't want to grow up. Hold the past in your heart, but where you go from here, it's up to you.
Wendy, Moira, Angela, darling. Where is Peter Pan?
Ooh, Ooh, that looks good. And that was Jude Law, really unrecognizable as Captain Hook. The film is the reimagining of the book in the animated movie. It debuts on Disney Plus April 28th. Coming up, and coming up pretty fast here, is Super Mario Brothers, the movie, getting here a little earlier than we first expected. Universal, of course, our parent company here, announced the film will be released on April 5th instead of April 7th. The 5th is actually a Wednesday. Not clear why the release is being pushed up. The movie stars Chris Pratt as Mario, Anna Taylor-Joy, and also Charlie Day, with a number of other celebrities. The Weeknd is the first artist in Spotify history to hit 100 million monthly listeners. He officially reached that milestone on Monday. Congrats out to him. This follows the release of his and Ariana Grande's Die For You remix. It's seen a bump on the charts over the last 7 weeks, peaking at number 6. Now, Miley Cyrus, she holds a number 2 spot on Spotify. Taylor Swift, no surprise here, at number 3. And Rihanna coming in 4th.
I think it's a very long-term impact, what we're going to see.
For more stories on climate change, keep watching LX News.
Get a check on your forecast today. I'm joined by meteorologist Matt Noyes. Hey, Matt.
Hi there.
We are talking about, as you told me earlier, the tale of one storm. It sounds like a good storybook, but I'm pretty sure it's not.
Well, you know what? It has lots of chapters to it. It depends on where you are, right? But nonetheless, as we crack open the storybook of the one storm, it really is amazing how one storm is going to run the country and have so many different impacts. So it begins over today with the snow. Actually, it started yesterday when we talked about the fact that we had snow that was coming into California. Now that snow is spreading in through a lot of the western U.S., not just in the Rockies, but deep down across portions of Arizona and New Mexico. By the time we get to Thursday and the storm comes across Texas, it starts to scoop up moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. Thunderstorms and severe weather develop between Dallas and Atlanta. That's a pretty big area on Thursday. The storm continues to strengthen and moves up through the Ohio Valley. On the north side, Chicago gets into snow on Friday. More thunderstorms in the southeast, and rain turns to snow and perhaps near blizzard conditions along the immediate coastline of parts of New England by the time we get to Friday night and Saturday. That may not include Boston. It may be areas up toward Maine, but nonetheless, this thing runs with quite a legacy that it leaves behind over the course of the next 3 to 4 days. In fact, we think that tomorrow's severe weather I mentioned from Dallas all the way to Atlanta will have a few strong tornadoes embedded in them, and that does include the Dallas metro, almost up to Little Rock through what's called the Arklatex region. Some very large hail with that as well. And as they move east later Thursday into Thursday night, there'll be damaging wind gusts in a large swath from Jackson to Memphis that may have a few tornadoes embedded even as it makes its way into portions of Alabama and then crosses over into Georgia. On the north side of the storm, it is the snow. And the north side of the storm, interestingly enough, can come all the way down to Tucson. We have snow that crosses the border into Mexico. El Paso ends up on the edge of some of the light snow. Albuquerque ends up getting a little snow, even down to the valley floor, which is a little bit tougher to do to the valley floor in Albuquerque. But you got a chance with this one. Fort Wayne running to Detroit, picking up on the order of 8 to 12 inches of snow. And here's that New England kind of jackpot on snow out of the storm, where you end up getting 12 to 18 inches in parts of interior New England Friday night into Saturday morning. Then there's the wind. Now, the wind with this thing is going to be cranking. You know what it does? Actually, today and tomorrow, explosive fire growth across western Texas here. This is out in advance of the storm and on the south side before it swings in that little bit of snow that we looked at. The gusts may go to 60 miles per hour. Then as you fire up the thunderstorms Thursday into Friday, you also fire up the wind right through Memphis and up into Cincinnati, gusts of 40, 50, and 60 miles per hour. And this is what it all culminates, is that winter storm across New England, which may bring 40 mile per hour gusts or greater to the coastline by Saturday morning to midday. So this is quite a story, isn't it, Natalie? It really does weave a tale here as it goes from southwest to northeast and runs the nation.
I'd like to read this book pretty quickly, if I can.
We'll get through it quick enough. By the time we get to Sunday, it's out of here. It's long gone.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Let's move now to a story out of Chicago. A woman with a big heart for the people in the city experiencing homelessness is setting a pretty ambitious goal, trying to raise money to tackle this issue. Ev Rodkasmi has more.
Underneath the Dan Ryan on Canalport in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood is where 62-year-old Juanita House lives. She's been without a home and on the streets for 30 years. Clean and sober now from her heroin addiction for 1 month. The only roof over her head is this green single-person tent where she sleeps next to people in similar situations.
Every day I wake up, thank God, and ask him to give me another chance.
Another chance is just a few tents down. Alita Clark has lived here for the past 19 days and calls Juanita and the others living down here her friends.
I don't want them to feel like they're under my shoe by me identifying them by their situation. So I call them the friends because it gives them a sense of belonging.
Alita has left her belongings, the comfort of her own home, and her children, and has chosen to live here. She's continuing to do so every night until she raises $1 million to open a shelter for them herself. She's already raised over $120,000 through her nonprofit and has some big names supporting her.
Tonight we're going to sleep underneath the Canalport Viaduct.
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel that she's sincere, that she really cares about us.
A permanent shelter would allow Juanita and her friends a place to call their own and allow them to get back on their feet. Alita wants the entire city of Chicago to not just support her financially, but to come and join her as part of a citywide sleep out until all the money is raised.
People that say they support to show me. Like, don't just show the friends, show Chicago.
And people like Juanita are depending on her.
And even though $1 million might seem like a pretty lofty goal, she is confident that she can raise that money. If you'd like to donate, or if you'd like more information, we posted a link to her website on ours. Just go to NBCChicago.com. Evrod Cassimy, NBC 5 News.
Welcome back to Current, powered by NECN. Rowdy kids, teenagers. Have you ever been out and seen them while you're eating? More restaurants have been changing their policies recently. We'll get to Melody. Coming up with some new rules to make restaurants less chaotic. And Melody, by your sounds, you might be in for these restrictions.
Noisy teens are the worst, man. I was never one. Ever.
Right. There's some restaurants, though, that are making some big moves to change this so that you feel more comfortable.
I am a fan of these changes, Natalie. I'm sure I'm in the minority here. But those days of like, yeah, let's go hang at the fast food joint after school. No, not anymore. At least not for teens these days. A Chick-fil-A franchise location in Pennsylvania will no longer allow unaccompanied children and teens to dine there. Anyone under 16 has to come with an adult. So I guess they'll be checking IDs at the door. I don't know how this is going to work, but the announcement was issued on the location's Facebook page, and management pointed to a series of, quote, unacceptable behaviors, loud volume, bad language mistreatment of property, mistreatment of employees, just some of the reasons given for the franchise. Can you blame them? No, those people sound miserable. The franchise said not every kid and teen coming in is acting up, and they're not blaming the parents either. So here's a really interesting part of the post. It said, children and teens are learning to navigate the world free from supervision and often push the boundaries. We can all agree on that, right? It says we simply can't let them push those boundaries anymore inside our restaurant. We encourage you to talk to your children and ask about the behaviors they have seen and perhaps participated in. Again, I can't imagine any teen acting like that. The post has been popular, hundreds and hundreds of people responding, many of whom seem to side with the franchise and say, yeah, thank goodness, get rid of them. And it's policy, at least this policy. We've seen headlines like this in recent weeks. We told you last week about Nettie's House of Spaghetti in New Jersey. Kids 10 and under would no longer be able to eat there, so my family's out. Can't say I blame them. We're annoying, we're loud, there are high chairs, we take up a lot of space, crazy messes, you know, all the typical parent stuff. The parents, guess what? We're used to it, and we don't mind being rejected. The restaurant says, yeah, no more, stay away. Can't say I blame you. One workaround for people under 16 going to that Chick-fil-A, though, the franchise to-go orders will still be accepted, Nat. So order your food to go. Go sit in your car and make the mess there.
I love that you said you were a teenager, right? So was I.
Yes, I was.
Were you a rowdy one?
Yes, and just as noisy as I am today. Can you imagine? I was super annoying. I'm surprised I wasn't banned from every restaurant in the tri-state area.
That checks for you.
Yeah,
right, thanks, Melody.
You're welcome.
All right, so now here's a question that I'm pretty sure hasn't recently crossed anyone's mind. What time is it on the moon? Well, that answer actually may be coming soon. With dozens of lunar missions planned for the years ahead, the European Space Agency says it may actually be time for moon time. Kind of like tummy time for kids, but different.
I love this. Moon time, right?
Hey, Colton. Yes, you have more on the work that is being done here.
Yes, exactly what you've all been wondering, folks. The hard-hitting journalism over here. All right, so time and space is actually calculated based by, of course, the time here on Earth, but that means different spacecraft are out of sync with each other, right? So it's not a big deal when there aren't that many missions, but in the years ahead, when more countries are all going to be, sort of operating on or around the moon, well, the European Space Agency says this uncoordinated method isn't sustainable. So they floated the idea of a universal method for lunar timekeeping, allowing for better coordination. And they've said they've already launched a joint international effort to explore the possibility. Here's the thing, though. There are a lot of hurdles, like who'd be the timekeeper, right? Should it be tied to the time that we have here on Earth? Should it be its own thing entirely? This won't be just a problem for policymakers to figure out, right? This is actually an engineering problem, too. Just like here on Earth, vehicles on the moon will use precise GPS coordination and timing. Now, the tiniest miscalculation could actually be disastrous because it's not just about what time it is on the moon, it's how time works on the moon. The moon's gravitational pull is weaker than Earth's, right? We know that, meaning a lunar clock would run a tiny bit faster than the same clock put on Earth. It would actually gain about 56 microseconds in a day, just a tiny amount there, not enough for anyone to lose sleep over it. That is, unless you're an engineer looking to precisely operate a spacecraft. So, set your watches, folks. NASA next year plans to send astronauts in an orbit around the moon. That's, of course, the Artemis mission. Artemis 2 will launch a year or two later, and that'll bring Americans back to the lunar surface. And then maybe by then we'll have moon time as soon as we figure out what to do with daylight saving.
Yeah, let's figure out the on-Earth time thing first before we move on.
Let's figure out one at a time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Colton.
Daylight saving thing.
Appreciate that. It turns out that sleep can really be a lifesaver. Monica Medea is here with the new science backing this claim.
We're learning now more about sleep and how sleep dangers impact our health and can even be deadly. New analysis of research shows that people who are suffering from insomnia are nearly 70% more likely to have a heart attack. Even sleeping fewer hours has an impact. Researchers found people who had only 5 or fewer hours a night were 56% more likely to have a heart attack, regardless of age or gender. And in a separate study, they found that people with the highest quality of sleep lived longer, an additional 4.7 years for men and 2.4 years for women. Here are some ideas for getting a good night's rest. Make sure your bedroom environment is comfortable and dark. Avoid caffeine 8 hours before bedtime. Read a book, play a mindless game. Knitting or listening to music can help the transition to sleep. And avoid naps. Get lots of sunlight in the morning to help calibrate your biological clock. Sleep experts also say if you wake up during the night, go back to that same set of rituals that got you to sleep earlier on. In the studio, I'm Monica Medea.
Justin Bieber has officially canceled the remainder of his Justice World Tour. The tour was formally canceled last September, but the remaining tour dates were only just removed from the pop star's website. Some performances previously listed on Ticketmaster included concerts planned for next year. Those have been canceled. Bieber initially postponed shows last year, having been diagnosed with a syndrome that partially paralyzed his face. Now, another close call, this one happening again at a big airport. The FAA is investigating an incident that happened at Boston's Logan Airport. JetBlue flight Monday was preparing to land when a Learjet took off without clearance. The pilot of the JetBlue aircraft took evasive actions to avoid a collision. No one was hurt in this incident. Now, new signs for the Jackie Robinson Parkway with a big swing and a miss, because that says Jakey Robinson, if you can read on here. New York City's Department of Transportation installed this sign, except they spelled everything wrong. The only one of the biggest and most important athletes to kind of ever actually go through there. The sign spotted in Queens. The sign was removed and then replaced with a sign, of course, that has the correct spelling. All right, everyone loves a rom-com, right? So have you ever wondered if you wanted to go maybe behind the scenes to see how the writers come up with a meet cute and then take them all the way to happily ever after? It seems so simple, right? There's a podcast for that takes you right into the writer's room. And Sue is here with this week's Listen to This. I'm interested in this.
This is a good one, Natalie. Yeah. You know, in 2022, some writers got together to make the podcast, Let's Make a Sci-Fi. And it was such a big hit, they decided to do it again, only this time with love. Hosts Maddie, Mark, and Ryan, they show us how to balance love and laughter as they help us write a rom-com script. And they bring in experts when needed. Maddie joined me on Listen to This. You guys had this exceptionally fun and wonderful podcast about how to make a sci-fi show, which was incredibly entertaining and fun. I haven't heard a lot of this yet because it's just come out. So tell me what you learned about how to make a sci-fi that you're going to use to make a rom-com.
Yes, well, it was very opposite of your instincts when you're making a sci-fi. You think it's all about the world or cool technology or gadgets you're making up. But we found very quickly that sci-fi is actually just a way to talk about our society and character development. So we really were hammered over and over again. What's the character's journey? What's the character's journey? And similarly in rom-coms are like these funny little case studies for like how people get together and why. And you want to make everything cute. But actually the most important thing is to have conflict. So we know who these characters are and what they're going through. So yeah, everything's actually the opposite of what you would think in screenwriting. That's what we're learning.
So there's three of you. Tell us a little bit about the setup here, and explain what I think is important too, what a writer's room is and what the premise of Let's Make a Rom-Com is.
Yeah, so the premise of Let's Make a Rom-Com and Let's Make a Sci-Fi is that myself and my two comedy writing partners, Mark Chavez and Ryan Beal, we're all comedians. And although we write and put things on stage and have made things, we've never made like these earnest genre pieces before. So this year we're tackling rom-com, and we get together to write collaboratively. A lot of like television shows will have a full writer's room, or a feature film will have multiple people working on it. And you get to kind of see the process behind that, or at least our process, which I don't think is always standard. This season, we literally made our characters in The Sims to see how they'd interact, because we thought it would give us ideas, and they just peed their pants over and over again. So
one of the lessons that I think you learned from How to Make a Sci-Fi was that if you guys think it's absolutely hysterically funny, it's probably not the best way to go for a sci-fi film, movie, or TV show. What lessons have you learned about your reaction to rom-coms that may be fun in the writer's room and obviously entertaining for us to listen to on the podcast, but may not actually be best for the final product?
Well, the challenge this year was definitely being earnest. Like, what do you personally as a writer think is romantic or sexy or vulnerable or scary? And even though I'm like a pretty open person, and me and Mark and Ryan talk about a lot of things all the time, I was shocked at how embarrassed I would get. We read each other like old love letters for inspiration, and I was redacting half of it. I couldn't believe how cheesy the things that I had said in real life were. And I rapidly lost confidence that I'd be able to write imaginary things. But we learned that, yeah, you really have to be earnest.
I'm probably the least romantic person of anyone that I know in my entire family. And whenever I go to a rom-com, which I find myself at all the time, I'm continually shocked that after the building has been saved, or some terrible thing has happened, or, you know, J-Lo has saved the wedding with her machete, and then they have this great romantic kiss, and I'm like, that's the last thing that I would want to do right now. I'd want to take a shower. I'd want to have a hamburger. I don't know that I would want to kiss my intended. Are there any tropes that you guys came up against that you thought about maybe just blowing up and making it different, or did you find yourself saying, you know, they're tropes for a reason?
Well, I'm a big tropes for a reason girl. I think that real rom-com nerds, they want you to work within the trope and then do something a little bit different. That's what I like about rom-coms. Mark and Ryan had different tastes sometimes. We actually had a long discussion about if they should even be together, which almost brought a tear to my eye. The idea these two people would go through all this and then not be together. But yeah, we don't have a chase to the airport, but we do have something that I think it'll strike a chord with people who like the tropes.
Okay, we'll have to stay tuned for that. So you don't just do this alone. You do get some help from actual professionals who have some history with success, as you did in the sci-fi world. Who's joining you on the podcast this year to help us understand how we can make a rom-com?
We we lucked out with guests this year. I mean, we were really spoiled. We talked to Kiwi Smith, who's known for Legally Blonde and She's the Man and 10 Things I Hate About You. We talked to Old Parker, who wrote Best Exotic Marigold Hotel and Mommy at 2, and just most recently Ticket to Paradise. We talked to Phoebe Robinson. We talked to really, really wonderful people. And this year, more than last year, we got so much out of them that we sort of couldn't stop talking to them, and a lot of them are featured in multiple episodes.
Has this given you a moment to reconsider some rom-coms that you've said? You mentioned She's the Man. That's the Amanda Bearse rom-com where it's a take on a Shakespearean play, and she pretends to be her brother. And I think it's a great movie. I saw it when it first came out, and I thought, Amanda Bearse just is not getting enough love for She's the Man. Yeah. I mean, we talk about Gouda around my house all the time because of it. Did you see any movies that maybe you hadn't seen before in prep for the podcast where you were shocked it was so bad, or reconsidered that you thought it was bad that actually turned out to be pretty good?
The main thing was that, rom-coms are rom first, but comedies as well. And comedy ages way quicker than you'd even think. Like, there's just insanely insensitive jokes in random scenes. That's the opposite of what you'd think would be in a rom-com, because they're sensitive movies. But yeah, we really wanted to work against that in our rom-com.
Yeah, one of the funny things about reconsidering things that I actually lived through the first time is I now understand how many men actually presented this viewpoint of this romance, and how we just bought it. Like, okay, that's how the romance is, without having a strong female voice or version of what that rom-com would be. So in the end, I don't want you to spoil it because we're going to listen to the entire podcast series, but are you happy with the final result?
Yeah, I am. I'm always happy with anything, I get to work on with Mark and Ryan. And we cast our real significant others to play the parts. So it was kind of, it was a bit of nepotism, I guess, but.
Hey, Nepo babies are happening right now. I look forward to the Sims game that's going to come along with this, I hope, and maybe let's make a rom-com on ice. Maddie, thanks so much for joining us on Listen to This.
Thank you.
You want me to talk to your favorite podcaster on Listen to This? You can @ me on Twitter at Sue NBC Boston. We'll be right back.
Introducing the LX News Zone, powered by NBC local news teams across the country. We put you in the action.
Reporting that brings the news to you.
The LX News Zone, every weekday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, only on LX News.
On this week's Real Estate Real Talk, it's a question that so many of us probably find ourselves asking. Should we buy a house or should we rent an apartment? Prices have been all over the place. Los Angeles real estate agent Carrie White joining me right now to discuss. This is a question that me and my fiance find ourselves asking as well.
Of course, yep. A lot of us and our friends are asking the same question, and it's very popular to wonder, do I rent, do I buy, when prices are just skyrocketing on all fronts, right? So you really have to look at inflation, interest rates, your affordability to make that decision, which we can dive in a little bit more today into.
Yeah, we're going to guide people here today. You just mentioned that with rising prices, does it make more sense to rent or buy a house?
Right. Well, with prices rising, they rose 1876 for the 16th consecutive month. So with rent skyrocketing, you have to look at what your fixed mortgage rate would be and your monthly payment and how that compares to rising rents. Because if you don't have something that's locked in, you may get priced out of the rental that you're in and have to move anyways. So everyone's getting scared about not being able to live in the cities that they'd like to live in. But with rents going up, that may be something that is taken off the table if you don't get into a purchase. So it's important to look at what's going on in your micro market itself.
So when we look at this, you mentioned rents and also the cost of house going up, prices of homes going up. How much, though, have rents risen across the U.S.?
they have skyrocketed. They reached, what was the price on that? Over almost 50% they had actually risen recently, which for a lot of people dealing with the price of groceries and travel and just everything in their daily commute. I mean, I hear about the price of an egg or cherries all the time. So with that going up and rent, it's really been making things difficult for people.
So we know rent is going up, the prices of homes going up. So how can we do the math here and know which one is going to be the better choice for us?
Right. So this is a really good formula to look at when you're looking at the size. So if you want to get into, say, a 1-bedroom, it's going to be a little bit less than your monthly payment. So if you're renting around $1,800, $1,700, your mortgage is around $1,800. But if you bump up to a 2-bedroom, you're really at about $2,200, $2,300. So you don't double in price just from going from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom. They go up exponentially. So the larger property you're looking at, it's going to be more affordable to purchase because your monthly payment is going to be lower than the price of renting. But 1-bedroom, sometimes people get into 1-bedrooms or studios just for the lack of not being able to afford something larger. But when you're looking at purchasing, you want to get into something that has a little bit more longevity to it, like a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom. A lot of people say, I have to have a 3-bedroom for kids they don't have and they're not even engaged, or, school districts and things like that. And a lot of times pushing up makes things less affordable. So get into something that works for you and your lifestyle that has a little bit more add value to it over time.
Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. But besides for being more affordable, what are some of the other benefits people talk about that that comes from owning over renting? I know a lot of things that I've heard is obviously your money going to your investment as opposed to renting where you're just paying someone else.
Right, that's the favorite line, why pay someone else's mortgage when you can pay your own?
Right.
The two key benefits are really payment stability and equity. And equity is stability in general is something that Americans are really craving because we've been in a world the last 2 years where we feel anything but stable with our government, the housing market, everything that's been going on, the global economy, climate change, that whole thing. So getting into a house provides you with some stability. And of course, like I was saying earlier, with inflation, you don't have to deal with being priced out of the property that you are in. Nothing feels worse than getting a knock on your door that it's time to move out because rents just went up $500, $700, and rent control is not common across the United States. You have it in some cities, but most people are subject to rent increases. So with everything going up in price, you want to get into a payment that provides stability. But even speaking further to that, when you put your money into a property, that builds equity, then you take your down payment plus your equity, which is like free money, and you put it into another newer property to get something larger, and you eventually build your wealth and your portfolio with time.
All right. If we are buying, Carrie, we're calling you up. We're going through you for sure. Thanks, Carrie, for all your insight and tips. You guys follow her on social media, Instagram at CarrieAnn, and on YouTube, go check out her channel, Carrie White Real Estate. Your Biz has headlines now. Everyone's getting on the AI wagon. Mark Zuckerberg said that Meta has a new team that's working on AI for Instagram and WhatsApp. No details on what those features are going to look like, but for years, Meta has been donating a significant amount of research to AI. So no surprise, they let companies like Microsoft and Spotify take all the headlines. Now, Nissan is recalling more than 800,000 small SUVs. Now, the problem is with the key that can cause the ignition to shut off while the vehicle is in drive. The recall covers certain Rogues from 2014 through 2020 model years, as well as Rogue Sports from 2017 to 2022. Nissan says that the SUVs have a jackknife folding key that may not stay fully open. Dish Nation confirmed Tuesday a recent network outage was the result of a cybersecurity breach. Dish says the break impacted its internal communications as well as customer service. They also say that some data was stolen without providing much detail. The intrusion took place last week, and the same day the company reported its fourth quarter earnings.
If you look at all of the different causes over the years, activism has been around forever.
For more stories on social justice,
keep watching LX News.
You are entering the group chat today. And today I'm joined by Sue and Matt. President Biden and the First Lady, they're sparking a little debate out there about dining out. Should you get the same dish as the person that you're dining out with, or should you branch out and try something new? Not a debate for me, really.
Yeah, not for me either.
Get the same thing.
No. Okay, that's it. All right, so they went to the Red Hen in Washington, D.C., and get this. They ordered 2 bowls of rigatoni. Now, some people felt that's like a big no-no to order the same thing. Why deprive yourself of all the other items on the menu? So, I get this, okay? So if I want rigatoni, I want to have a whole bowl of rigatoni.
Yeah.
Right.
I might not want what Matt wants.
That's right. I'll even go so far as I'll ask my wife, Danielle, are you going to want any of what I'm going to get?
Yes.
And the reason I ask is if she says yes, I'm going to say, then why don't you get your own?
Yeah, that's also true.
There's always someone, too, who has to give up a little, too.
Yes,
and that's
yes.
So
and I also think there's a compromise there, right?
Right.
Well, I'm looking at 2 things. Okay, I'll get one, you get the other, and we have both. What?
Right.
That's how this works.
Okay.
Okay, it's okay to admit it. The big reason why people go to the movies, duh, it's the popcorn. That's all it is.
Okay, all right.
And not all the places do it right these days, right? Nothing beats a warm, buttery bowl of fresh popcorn straight out of the popper. And unfortunately, I have to do it with earplugs in because I can't listen to people eat it, but I still
No way. Is that
enjoy
true?
it.
That's like a
is
pet
true.
peeve?
Oh,
Stand behind her. Why don't you
Very
stand
bad.
behind her in the newsroom?
This
and
is
eat
the
some
most
chips,
exciting part
Matt,
of the
and see what
segment,
happens.
discovering this about you. Holy
Stand behind her and eat some chips and see what happens.
Terribly
Oh my
bad.
gosh, I can't wait to try this out.
Oh, it's
All
terrible.
right. Well, now she can't go to Walmart either because they're now having some popcorn for you.
Wow.
So, you don't have to
Wow.
walk out with that half-eaten jumbo popcorn at the AMC. They're partnering with
know.
Walmart,
Terrible.
AMC is, to sell its popcorn in its stores, both pre-popped and the microwave.
Okay, I was going to say, do you think that there is any real substitute for actual movie theater popcorn?
No.
I know it's from AMC, but is it the real deal?
No.
I can't.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
So gross.
You can enjoy the popcorn while you watch the Oscars, all right? The AMC popcorn shows up on store shelves March 11th, the day before the Oscars awards.
All right, and maybe another junk food partnership that we need to talk about here, McDonald's and Krispy Kreme. McDonald's is selling Krispy Kreme donuts at some restaurants. This is happening at just some locations in Kentucky.
This is so cool. McDonald's did a much smaller test run in the area last year. Obviously, it worked because now more donut flavors will be available. They'll be available all day. You kind of got to figure, if you're going to take the plunge and grab McDonald's anyway, might as well just keep going and grab the Krispy Kreme to go with it. You know what I mean?
That's why I get my quarter pounder with cheese, French fries, and a Diet Coke. So now I'll have room.
I do the same thing.
Now I'll have room for a Krispy Kreme.
I get the double quarter pounder with cheese and the Diet Coke.
I just like the way it tastes.
I mean, Diet Coke, yeah. I would just, Diet Cokes are pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so now we've got something that we all need to figure out here.
Okay.
Have you seen enough of these T-Rex costumes? Of course, you've seen them before.
Yeah, we're talking about those big, giant, inflatable costumes.
there
just
they
like
are.
these here, they've been around for years now. Are they funny or just kind of dumb?
So this was in Japan over the weekend, all right? More than 100 dino racers all came together. And I got to tell you, I actually did a little research on this story because I was convinced, Sue and Natalie, that I was going to find a reason. There was a charity event. There was something. Nope, it turns out this is just really cool. It happens all the time in Japan. They do this stuff.
So they decided to do this on the beach with sand, of course. So
tough.
I think they're funny. I'm laughing now.
Yeah,
Natalie?
that's true. We get some of our best game shows from Japan, so this might be next.
I just love watching. My money's on the red one. My money's on the red one. My money's on the red one.
It's
no, I don't know.
hard enough running in sand, let alone in these costumes.
I enjoy seeing them when it's unexpected.
True.
That's what if I'm like watching like a group of people waiting in line for tickets,
just shows up,
and there's one in a T-Rex.
like the Yeti in Boston. Remember the Yeti in Boston?
Yes,
years ago
the
showed up
snow
all
Yeti.
over, right?
When we used,
that's one of the things.
Snow in Boston.
This actually filled up so fast. They had like 70 or 90 slots. It filled up so fast they had to actually create other age brackets. So they have a kids run, a juniors
that's fun,
one,
I guess.
all this stuff. Isn't that
All right,
crazy?
we'll take it.
Okay. Well, to each their own. Go get your costume on. Thanks for joining us here today on Current. We really appreciate it. I'm Natalie Lizarraga.
I'm Sue O'Connell.
And I'm Matt Noyce.
See you tomorrow.